Hi, this is Martin for Revelation Software and welcome to another video in my series looking at getting started with OpenInsight. And we're back to our normal opener, no more silly accents and silly words. Right, today we're going to continue looking at the user interface workspace within our clinic application. However, before I go into the actual clinic application itself, what I want to do is just to look at this form that we're creating. Now, to provide people with a list of hospital numbers, we could do one of two things. We could either do a drop down and have a list of numbers that's populated from the database. But with combo boxes in OpenInsight, you can only really easily have one item. So it could be a number, not going to mean anything to us, maybe an initial surname. Again, you might have multiple people with the same surname. Date of birth isn't going to mean anything to anybody. We might want to provide the user with a little bit more information, and we do in this instance. We want to provide them with the number, the first name, the surname, and maybe a date of birth, for instance, as an identifier. And we can do that using a pop-up. And I've created an additional button between the lessons, which is a simple button with 3 dots on it. And that's going to be used to call the pop-up. Doesn't work at the moment. If I click it, nothing happens. So what we'll do is we'll just close out of here. We'll close out of that window and we'll drop into the user interface workspace and we'll go new. Now, when it comes to creating pop-ups, we can either use the traditional pop-up where we go into the interface and build it manually. So we can click on that. And then that will take us into this window where we can click through each of the tabs and work through slowly. Or what we can do is we can go into the pop-up with wizard, and then that will open up the wizard, which we can then walk through. And that's what we'll do for this particular lesson. So we get the welcome screen, which we can click next to, and then we're prompted for the table from where our data is located, which is MP_patient. So we'll select that and click next. And then we're asked for the columns that we want to show in the pop-up. So the first one is hospital number that we're going to want. And I can tab through and it will automatically drop the conversion in, and it will automatically drop a column heading in for me. And I can tab through again, and then I can select 4 names. Or alternatively, rather than tabbing through, I can now just simply click surname and again come down here and click date of birth. Now, there's no validation conversion on date of birth. Well, there should be. So if we just click the box, you'll see that come in. And there's no conversion on those 2 items, but we're missing some column headings. So just click on the boxes and you'll see those column headings come in. The date of birth is one that we might want to change. So we'll just quickly go in there and change that to date of birth simply by selecting a cell and over typing. And then we can just click next to go on, and then our pop-up name. So this is going to be hospital number. Nice and easy. So we'll click next and we'll click finish. It already exists because I've created one earlier. I'm just going to overwrite this one. The first video I did went wrong, to be perfectly honest, so the system's just caught me out. But this is the pop-up that we've just created. I'm doing a new one here. So this is going to be pop-up hospital number. We've got our title. It's going to render this particular pop-up in the center of the window, which I'm happy with. The width is going to be sized to fit and the height is sized to fit. We could change the number of columns or the number of rows if we want to. And we can also change the color and the font if we want to as well. But I'm happy with the default, so we'll go into source. Now, the source has already decided that we're going to select rows from the table. Alternatively, I could have created some literal data if I had a finite number of items for the user to choose from, or I could be choosing columns from the row, a column from the row, a list of different options. And on the right hand side here, it gives you some help on what those items are. So if I was to click on literal data, then you can see some help for that. So it's all rather nice. Happy with select rows from table, so we'll just click on selection and we get a note of the table that we're working on, all of the available columns and the ones that we've selected. Now, I might also, as an additional qualifier, want to add in postcode, which we forgot to do earlier. So I can just simply select postcode and add them. So you can see here that although we've gone through the wizard, everything is still changeable. I can remove the selected columns and add selected columns, etc. So if we then go on to layout, my heading for the hospital number is not great because I want to have that in lowercase rather than uppercase. So we'll simply change that. In fact, I might want to change that to hospital no because it's not going to be very long. The width, we might want to change that to 5, and just because I might want to change the column justification to center. Now I just hit C. I could drop down and choose one there. Forenames I'm happy with, surname I'm happy with, date of birth I'm happy with. The postcode's okay, except it's a little bit long, so we might want to change that to 10 for instance. And the date of birth is currently justified to the right, which would be normal because that's a number. I'm just going to change that to left just to keep it looking nice. We can then look at the value. Now the value returned could be read only. You could have a row position, row ID, etc. I'm happy with a pop-up column. And we can have our selection whether it's none, single, multiple or ordered. Now just for the moment I'm going to go multiple because of something we're going to do when we get into the form. So I'm going to allow the user to select multiple records. And then on the options, lots of options. We can make it sortable and searchable. We can make it printable. We could put the buttons on the top rather than the side. Buttons on the bottom rather than on the side. And we can also set a horizontal lock column. So we might want to say that we always want to show the first column, you know, if this was to be size. So I'll just turn that on for the moment. We'll run a gas gauge, and with the green bar, if I leave that off and just run that, then you'll see that this is all just white. So what I could do is to just OK that, go into the green bar and then test run that. They're now all blue. Okay, so let's just go into the even row and change that to white. I could quite easily change this one to a different color as well, but that looks a lot nicer. I'm quite happy with that. And you'll see here that we've got our lock column here. So if there was to be more data in here, it was to be wider, then we could change that. In fact, this is quite wide really for our particular form that we're working with. So let's just go back into general, and we'll change the width to 3 just to show you how the lock column works. So now you can see here that the column number is always going to show. This is now a set width, and now we can just use this slide bar to move between always showing the hospital number. So we can cancel out of there, and I'm just going to do size to fit for the moment, but we'll leave that to 20 so that it's not too deep. We can also generate the code if we want to. That will do the same as we did in the previous lesson, where it will produce the code and we can copy that to a script event handler at a later date. Don't need to worry about that right now. So we're happy with that, so I can go ahead and hit the save button. Now that saved the pop-up, but I didn't get the opportunity to actually name it, and it's actually saved it as simply hospital number, which is maybe not necessarily what I would want to do. So what I tend to do is always do a save as. So rather than it just being hospital number, I actually want this to be mp underscore, put this in the right place, mp underscore pop-up, and that way it's always in the repository going to put the entity with my other MPs, and it's always going to put all my pop-ups together so I can find them. So I'll OK that, and I would prefer to do that rather than using the default because I will lose it. So that all comes down to naming conventions. And I've also got this mp underscore pop-up, a bit of a strange name in there. So let's just go back into here and we'll change this to hospital number, because that's a little bit nicer.